up, everybody?
Hey, it's that time again.
It's that time again. Everybody, welcome to Keep Pluggin week number 17. Ben?
There you go.
If our podcast was a human boy or girl, they could buy an M-rated video game or go see an R-rated movie on their own right now.
Or get statutory raped.
Well, that's wow. You brought it. Yes, you're right. They're under the laws of not. I think in New York State, it's still under the age of consent. Yeah. So if it was wow, that's
all right.
Fuck.
I'm gonna stop you while we're still ahead a bit.
Why am I the one stammering and you're the one that said something uncomfortable? That's amazing.
That's the dynamic.
That's the dynamic. Anyway, everybody, as always, welcome to the best video game podcast around. Today we have as always, very special game to look at as we look back in gaming history. Ben, what is the game we've touched on for today?
Today is one of my all-time favorites.
Ooh.
It was released on. Well, actually, we're hitting both release dates.
This is amazing. Not only are we hitting the actual North American release date, which is a rarity on this, we also are getting the Japanese release date for one game. So what are the two release dates, Ben?
The day we're recording, May 23rd.
Today, this is Tuesday.
It came out in America.
Mm-hmm.
And the day the podcast drops on Saturday.
The day you guys are listening to this.
The 27th. It came out in Japan.
And what is the game in question, Ben?
A little game known as Super Mario Galaxy 2.
Super Mario Galaxy 2! That's pretty much probably how he says it at the
That's
titles.
the Wii channel right there.
You're right.
It feels like I just started the game up.
Oh. We've talked about the Mario Galaxy series in general a good deal, particularly towards the beginning of the podcast. I can't even remember what episode now, when we were talking about, it might have been even during one of our episodes about the Switch, pre-Switch coming out, when we were talking about Mario Odyssey, things we want from that game, and why we're excited about it. We touched on Galaxy, and particularly we actually touched on Galaxy 2, because it was the beginning of probably a 5-year period where the Mario games were kind of more about incremental improvement than the so-called next big thing. And even though I mean, like, the Galaxy games are fantastic, and a lot of people consider Galaxy 2 better than the first, it is also kind of seen as the beginning of this era where they got away from like the sandboxy Mario 64 style and more towards the classic refined style. Even Galaxy 2 itself kind of moves back towards that because it gets rid of the hub world and goes back to more of like a World 1.
Yeah, Galaxy 2 coming off Galaxy 1 makes it even more streamlined.
Yes.
And they got, it's just, you got the little Mario head shit, but it's still a level select screen, basically.
Okay.
There is what I'm talking about?
There is still like kind of like a hub world almost. Like you can like go around like
it's a hub level. It's a hub, like, it's a little like demo area. It's not as cool as the Rosalina's Observatory.
Yeah.
I think, but
it's more of like a little thing, and really you just kind of, it's like an area for you to go and do like a couple little things in between you going from level to level, more, and it's more linear than the first one is, right? It is literally like it's like a classic Mario overworld. Like you go from one segment to the next, correct?
It's just a line with levels on it. It's not even an overworld. You just go into a menu basically.
Okay, so it's even more streamlined than like a Super Mario like old school overworld.
Yeah, it's probably the most streamlined level select screen of all the 3D Marios.
Interesting.
But the game, it's a toss up for me. Galaxy 1 like made the impact, and I think that one might just win out for me because of the music.
Oh yeah.
But I think Galaxy 2 just wins out for me because of the final boss, which I don't know, that for me that matters a lot to the whole game. And I like the Bowser battle better in Galaxy 2.
I've heard from a lot of people that the final boss battle is better. In general, I've heard it has some of the best levels are in the second game, like period of the Galaxy style. Like,
yeah, they definitely. It was supposed to be like a 1.5 kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
like an expansion type deal, but they were just like, we have so many ideas. They just went full force with it.
It's incredible how many sequels there are like that like they grow out of like DLC naturally and become their own thing, and they still feel like whole complete games. Totally different type of game, but Left 4 Dead 2 is exactly the same thing. It was supposed to be DLC content for the first game, grew out, became its own game, and it's arguably better than the first game. Which, again, that fits that same mold of Mario Galaxy 2 because again, a lot of people consider it even better than the first. Do you mind it though? I mean, again, this is maybe to kind of continue the conversation we were having all those episodes ago. Because it's I've played a bit of Mario Galaxy 2. Again, I'm more versed in the first one, but do you miss that overworld? And are there any benefits or drawbacks of like the more just level to level system?
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't really mind. I think the observatory, like kind of castle area, is cool. Like 64 probably did it the best. Sunshine, it was a whole big area, but yeah, I don't mind just going into the level select screen and sure you get to like you don't get to fly around and like find little secrets and whatnot, but that's all in the main game. It doesn't bother me. Some people complain about it. They're like, "Oh, where's my hub world? Yo, why can't I jump into paintings? Why can't I go into observatories?" But it's just like, just let me get into the game. It's not a big loss for me.
It seems like in general, like not just the idea of this game, but of this whole era of Mario games is about all killer no filler, like getting you into the levels, getting you experience that Mario platforming goodness. Because I mean, end of the day, that is the main thing. Like you're not there for the
Yeah,
overworld, you're not there for the hub world, but it's also hard because like again, like this is a series that, like you said, has had started off with like in its 3D era possibly the most iconic hub world of all time, and it created the whole idea of platforming hub worlds, which is something that I think later in the game we're going to get back to because we were just both playing a game that very much so is indebted to that style. Most 3D
yeah,
platformers are
yeah,
indebted to that style, so on some level I could actually see maybe why that was more reason Nintendo wanted to get away for it with Galaxy 2. They wanted to go, okay, everyone's doing this hub world thing, we created this, now let's refine it. Let's
and they were all about streamlining at that point. Like they with Galaxy and into Galaxy 2, they found this like perfect Mario level formula with
yes.
how like a level should go, and it just feels super streamlined. And I guess having that extra barrier of having to find the level to even enter it, they just it it's not needed. But
Yeah. It doesn't
yeah,
take anything away from the game.
yeah, and like these games are some of my favorite to like get 100% because the reward is usually like a superb like challenge level like master. I think Galaxy 1, I forget what it was called, but the Galaxy 2, it's called the Grand Master Galaxy, I think.
Ooh.
No, no. That's wrong. I think it's called the Perfect Run, which is even cooler because you have to do it with one hit. You can't get hit at all, and it just they're so great because it just incorporates every single like minuscule gameplay concept from the entire game. I just love those like super final like finale awesome master levels that take like hours to learn.
That's something really cool about both the Galaxy games. I know we talked about the idea of what they did with there was the what is it? It's like 100 and there's 120 stars or something in general, but you have to 80 or something to complete the game. What is it?
Yeah, I forget the exact number. I think it's over 200, but
Oh shit! Wow.
yeah, you need way less to fight Bowser, and then there's also the green stars and the purple coins
Right.
challenges. They just like yeah, those games are brimming with content.
Yeah.
That's why again, like it's not really a loss to not have
The
the little
overworld,
overworld part.
because they're just getting to the point which is all the different things you can do in each level and all the different stuff to collect, all the different runs, and all the ways you can spend so much time even just trying to perfectly run one level, which is
Yeah,
again it is in a lot of ways a return to that classic Mario formula of hidden things, multiple types of collectibles, and just like perfect like pixel perfect like platforming.
yeah. It's interesting though that I mean, so many fans want the sunshine type of feel, and
Yeah,
that's obviously why they're going back to that with Odyssey.
they are, but the interesting thing is, I mean, he has that like hat thing. Like, I wonder if there actually is going to be an overworld, or it's going to be more of a like that's like your like little hub world.
The
Same,
ship,
yeah, yeah, but and like the levels themselves are just going to be really big, like Mario 64 and Sunshine style. You know?
yeah, it's weird. Like obviously your transportation is the hat,
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see
Even
they
if
make.
that's the case, I wouldn't be disappointed though. I would say I think that
Yeah, those are always like nitpicks on a perfect game,
yeah.
Like some people they also reuse levels sometimes. Like one of the levels in Galaxy 1 is they did like a mirror version. It was like the honeybee level, remember the bee power up?
Yes, yeah. I was
And
gonna
they
bring that one
yeah,
up.
they had that and then like a level later in the game was they did a mirror version of it with a different like season. Like one was spring themed and the other one was fall themed.
Oh, okay.
And then people were like, "Oh, they used that level already." But it's like, yeah, but it's not like you're missing out on a new level. It's more like you're getting another level
Yeah.
because
They
it would
don't.
you know what I'm saying?
Is there a lot of that in Galaxy 2? Because I don't remember really hearing that there was a lot of panning like that in the game.
It's not a lot, but it's there.
There's like a couple levels like that where
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
the inverse version.
And
Like
like I mean, the levels in general in Mario are kind of like that, where you have to re-go
that's
to
true.
each one and get the different stars.
That's true.
But they're usually differentiated. Like there's different stuff going on,
Yeah.
and it's cool to see a level evolve and grow
They,
each time you go back.
and there's enough going on with like the mirroring and like the different and the different aesthetics where like they do spice it up just enough where maybe it doesn't feel, even if it is them
Yeah,
kind of reusing it at a level, they do it in a clever way.
I just remember one of my favorite levels was the throwback galaxy
Oh yeah.
in Galaxy 2, where it's the 64 level, the Thwomp one.
Oh yeah.
They just remade that in the Galaxy engine.
That's so cool.
Turned out awesome, and had the music and everything.
I never played it, but I heard that and I've seen video of it. I really
Yeah.
want to. I own Galaxy 2. It's another one of those games like with Skyward Sword. I think I might now that my Wii's been dusted off. Although I mean, it's been a couple months now. I should probably boot up the Wii again. But now that like my Wii's in more regular usage than it had been, I do want to revisit that game. Before we end, there was one point that you brought up way back at the beginning that I did want to touch on. Galaxy wanted some of my favorite like orchestral music. Was that not as big of a factor in two?
Oh no, it was totally there, full force. I just think that personally, I like the tracks better
Okay.
on Galaxy One. But yeah, the music is another like. Obviously, for me, the Nintendo has great game music, all their games. But yeah, Galaxy One was just an all timer for me, and I think it was. I don't know what was the first game they did orchestral music for Mario. I know Skyward Sword was the first orchestra based soundtrack for a Zelda game.
Well, didn't they have some in Twilight Princess? Well, they used.
No, that maybe it was enhanced a bit, but it was mostly MIDI.
Yeah, you're right. It was mostly MIDI.
And yeah, I think Wii generation they made that switch to orchestra,
I think you're right. Yeah,
which is pretty good.
which is interesting because now even like, not to go on a tangent, but not Skyward Sword. Breath of the Wild has, it seems like, a decent amount of MIDI music mixed in with like some of the more orchestral themes.
I thought that was all live music.
Maybe it is, and maybe it is all live music, but some of it sounds almost MIDI like to me. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe because it's just like a lot of piano.
That's true.
Those one note things. It's easier to replicate than like a violin or something.
That's true.
Maybe it sounds similar.
It's also a lot of times it's very odd music, but in an interesting way for a Zelda game. I just, well, that's a whole other subject. The music in Breath of the Wild is fantastic, but we'll save that for very soon. Ben, on that note, kind of getting into some stuff like that now. What else have you been playing this week?
This week, obviously, I'm always on the Nintendo grind.
Oh yeah.
I got a Pro Controller for my birthday.
Happy. Oh, by the way, yesterday was Mr. Benjamin Farrell's birthday. So
thank you.
Yesterday, from when we're recording, Monday, a couple days from when you guys are going to be hearing this, it's Benny Boy's birthday. If you're listening to this, happy belated birthday. Send him your birthday wishes. He'll feel it. He'll love it.
Yeah, and I actually just remembered that when Galaxy 2 came out, I got that for my birthday that year.
Right.
So that's another reason. It's an all-time favorite for me.
All right. Well, you got it. It came out today, though. So
it came out the 23rd. I'm pretty sure my brother handed me like a $20 bill. He's like, put this towards your game.
Oh, cool.
So it was one of those things.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, this year I got a Pro Controller for the Switch.
All right, awesome.
Which is a great get.
And me and Dan had one already, so you are now all three of us do.
I was last to the Pro party.
You're there. You know what?
Feels good.
It's not about being late. It's about if you show up at all, Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
What else did you get, my friend?
And well, actually, just to touch on the Pro Controller, really enjoying it. Although I think for Zelda specifically, I feel more pro using the Joy Cons,
Oh yeah.
just because maybe I'm not used to the new one yet. But I had like all these finger tricks going on with like I could move the camera and run at the same time
Oh
with
yeah.
the Joy-Con, just the way like the sticks are so low to the controller. I had a lot of maneuvers going on, but we'll see how that goes. And
One thing I will say, I understand what you're saying. It's kind of hard some of those button tricks because they're not quite as close together. But something that it feels fantastic. The gyro aiming is incredible on that
oh yeah,
Joy-Con controller.
yeah. Once I pressed the bumper and it took out my ice rune, I was
Oh
like, whoa.
yeah, right.
It
It
feels,
is.
even though the grip it's similar, it's like once it's in a real controller,
Yeah.
it's a new feeling.
There's something about it where I just feel like it's like a little bit. I don't know if it's more responsive or it just feels
Or you think
nicer.
the actual response? You know what it might be actually? I think the when you put them in the grip, the Joy Cons, it's sensing just the right Joy-Con.
Oh, you're
So
right.
like it's not centered really. Like in reality,
Hmm.
it's more to the right, even though it feels okay. So maybe it's just overall smoother experience when it's centered.
All I know is that if I'm playing docked, it's the only way I'm going to play Splatoon because I'm going to be a monster. I cannot wait to destroy some people in Splatoon with that thing.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
All right, I'm sorry.
And
Getting back to Ben though.
beyond that, I played some Four Swords 25th Anniversary Edition on the
Oh,
3DS with Dan, great
right.
friend of the podcast.
Great friend of the podcast.
Hope to have him on soon again.
We will definitely be having some people back on soon.
And we were playing some, yeah, Four Swords. With it was two swords though, just the two of us.
It was just two swords adventure. Two swords is better than none, though. You know.
Yeah, it's good. It works well, and we realized that it's there was some random stuff going on. Like I don't usually like randomly generated games, random dungeons, stuff like that. But I think it's closer to it like randomly picks levels. Like it's not creating the levels; they're designed levels that it throws at you randomly. You know,
Okay.
so there's several different ones you could get.
So it's not a procedurally generated level as much as it's procedurally picking a pre-designed level for you.
Exactly, yeah. So I don't mind that as much, and it's the puzzles are really simple. I think the bosses are the coolest part to work cooperatively. I think it works well. It was before Four Swords Adventures on the GameCube. I think I haven't played that one. That's the hardest to like get going because we needed the 3DS to even try this because it's just such a hassle to have to get the GBA cards and the wires and the GameCube, and I'm still confused how that works on the connectivity side. It's just so simple on the 3DS, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like the high score system. It's based on rupees, depending how well you do.
So is there an element of competition where like one of you can get a better score than the
Yeah,
other?
it's similar to like 3D World. You know how you at the end it tallies you up and gives someone a
Yes.
crown.
Even though it's co-op, there's still that element of competition between all of you guys.
Yeah, it gives there's a little incentive to still be the best.
That is interesting. Especially in comparison to what I'm going to talk about in my version. I didn't realize there was that element of asynchronous cooperative almost, where
Hmm.
there is. I really like that a lot. I feel like a lot of games don't do that now. That idea of you play cooperatively, but there's maybe some kind of meta game, some kind of high score that you're trying to beat the other person at. I think that's a really cool mixture of like competitive and co-op.
Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah,
like that.
I think in general there's a lot of cool co-op games out there that could benefit from maybe some kind of like motor version like that. Just
Yeah, yeah.
I'm thinking a little bit more Mount Head right now, but just to say that. Anything else you want to talk about in terms of Four Swords?
That's pretty much it. I think it works as a great predecessor to Triforce Heroes,
Hmm.
which we were also playing a bit with Dan, the three
Yes.
of us.
And specifically, I am going to talk about that game a little bit right now in my section. Although I think we're probably both going to end up touching in on it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I did play last night Triforce Heroes with you and Ben. You and Ben. You're Ben right here. You and Dan. Once again, friend of the podcast, good friend, good boy, Danny Boy Roach, Danny Good Boy Roach Boy. Either way, me, Danny Good Boy Roach Boy, and Ben here were playing it last night during Ben's birthday extravaganza. I'd never played it before. As you guys know, I am without a 3DS, so I actually had to borrow my old buddy Danny Boy. Just got a new 3DS XL, the Galaxy version that's coming out, which looks insane. It is really nice.
It's a hot piece.
It's a hot piece, yeah, and it looks very nice. He loves purple, so you know it makes sense. He's a big purple guy. He gave me his old, literally first generation three, not even new 3DS, just regular 3DS. So I was playing with these guys. Something I noticed, it was playing like 8-bit style music on mine on the old, and on you were both playing on the new 3DS, and it was playing like more orchestral sounding music on yours.
Well, yeah, you were on download play. We had the cart.
Yes.
Maybe that's one of the caveats.
Yes.
It's like it's a cool little Nintendo touch of a caveat where it's like it's a cool thing. It's supposed to be a part of the downgrade for not having the game, but it's also just a cool tidbit.
That would be a really cool thing, and it would make sense. Download play, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a cool 3DS feature that I hope makes its way to Switch. We're gonna maybe touch on that, but you can basically, if a friend or two friends have a cartridge and you don't, you can play along with them.
Most games have it.
Most 3DS games have it.
Multiplayer.
Yeah.
Mario Kart is amazing for.
I hear it.
That's another one that has a caveat. The downloader can only play as Shy Guy.
Right.
So usually there's a little bit of a reduction in ability or something like that.
That's funny. I think, yeah, Mario Kart DS for the original DS, that was a caveat too.
Well, I was talking about 7 though, the 3DS one.
I know, but I'm just saying it's funny that they revived that.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same thing on both ones. So there were a couple other caveats. I only could get two. I basically started as a new character. You guys obviously had progress because it is like a full featured game. Like, you know, you do level up, you get new armors. Like, it's like a Zelda game. So
yeah, like Four Swords is purely multiplayer. Like you jump into the levels and you get through the random levels. This one actually has like a hub and a town and stuff you could buy and progress you can make and clothes you can get that give you abilities. So if you're doing the download play, you have none of that.
Yeah, I think there was 2 slots, so I could have gotten like 2 outfits. I don't even know how you get outfits in the levels and stuff. We can get into that later. But
you remember at the end of the level, there were 3 treasure chests.
Oh.
And I got the special item. It's random which one you get, but 2 of you will get a garbage item. 1 person gets a good item, and that's what you put towards making the outfits.
So I just got the garbage item.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know what? I'll say this, garbage or no, I had a lot of fun with it. It was very interesting, very co-op centric in terms of a lot of puzzles and stuff. I don't know, how did Four Swords compare to that? Was it more just you guys trying to survive and fight through the levels, or was there that same element of?
I think Triforce is much more in depth gameplay wise
with the co-op aspect.
But just in general, it's a much deeper game. It's built off the Link Between Worlds engine, and that alone gives it much more oomph. Like it's like they didn't have to make the game from scratch, so they had all this great stuff to work with already. So that just playing it feels amazing. Yeah, just like upgrading your outfits and the puzzles themselves. The main mechanic is the totem.
Yes, which means basically you as Link, same way that you can in Link to the Past and Link Between Worlds specifically, you know, you can pick up, or in any Zelda game, but in that very Link Between Worlds style, you can pick up items, but you can also now pick up the other players. So one player can pick you up, and then another player can pick those 2 players up, and you can make a 3-person totem or just a 2-person totem. And at various points, you need that to solve different puzzles. Like, for instance, there might be an orb, classic Link Between Worlds style. Again, you have to shoot an arrow through it, but it's 3 levels above you. Something cool too is that it uses the depth of field of the 3D really interestingly.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of interesting to play this game. Because as I was talking about a couple weeks back, now that the new 2DS XL has been announced, I was thinking of getting one. I do feel like it would be hard to play this game without the 3D. This is one of the rare cases where, and Link Between Worlds did this too, kind of, but not quite as in depth.
The depth perception helps.
It's almost, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's 100% necessary, but for some of those puzzles, like I know we were even with the 3D on sometimes squabbling about if we needed 2 people or 3 people on the podium, and that was fun too because there was definitely some miscommunications at times. Some of us throwing each other off of things. Some of me especially being my first time playing it. There was some times Ben would tell me to do something, or Dan would. I wouldn't quite understand it, or we would miscommunicate something, or I would be trying to tell them something.
You get thrown off ledges.
Yes,
a lot. And like at fault, but also at no fault to the person who's throwing you because it's just chaos sometimes.
It is just chaos, but it's fun chaos, and
Yeah, it's that great Nintendo like Mario Kart frustration where
it
you
is.
hate and love your friends at the same time.
That was 100% happening, and it's interesting too. One cool thing that the game does is that you all share a heart bar too, which is
Yeah,
brilliant actually, because anytime someone messes up, the whole team messes up, or if you die, the whole team dies. It makes it a lot more. Everyone is not just responsible for themselves now; they're responsible for the group. That's really good. That's a really good way to raise the stakes and like make cooperative play really matter, because now you have to keep everyone else alive. You also have to,
yeah. You can't just be a jerk. You can't just
yeah,
be troll and be like, they killed you. You
yeah,
know, it's like everyone's life is at stake.
yes. But then it also like, if you see that, say that like in a certain situation, even like say even if you are trying, say you do get that death screen and you see it and you realize, oh my god, I'm the one who killed us, like during this boss fight. It
Hmm.
then puts the pressure on you where like the other two people are looking at you, and like, okay, I got to get my game up next round. We got to do this.
Yeah,
We got to do this. Um, I know even with us, like we got to the boss level and that happened, and then we finally just lost, and then we were immediately like, well, we have to go back and replay it. It has that hook of a good co-op game down really well, of getting you to want to jump back in even though it's frustrating. And it actually kind of reminded me almost of Portal 2's co-op, which was something that we
yeah,
didn't really talk about at all when we did that game's retrospective a couple weeks back. So
yeah. And
um,
that's a big, awesome part of that game
it's a
too.
giant awesome part of that game, and in general too, talking about Triforce Heroes made us kind of think about co-op games. So I think we're gonna kind of just shoot the shit for a bit about not just Portal 2, but some of our favorite examples of co-op puzzle games, but also just co-op gaming in general, because it's not a subject we've touched on too often on this podcast. So on that note, yeah, Portal 2, that is one of the biggest aspects of it. I played through a decent amount of it. It's funny, I actually only very recently kind of went back through and played it through. I didn't do it for a while just because, again, for me, Portal 2 was mainly I was there for the single player, you know.
Yeah,
I know you played a good amount of it and you love it, right?
I'm pretty sure I beat it. Um, well, an interesting thing is like Triforce is built that you can play it by yourself. There's no two-player option,
Yeah,
but you can do a mode where you're switching between links,
interesting.
controlling each one at separate times. So like
And
you
I've known other co-op games that let you do that in single
really,
player. Yeah,
do you have an example?
I think, well, Mario and Luigi, right? Some of the Mario and Luigi games you control both of them.
Oh yeah, but that's not co-op.
There was
That's a
one.
similar mechanic.
Wasn't there one they did on 3DS that was co-op?
Um, no, I don't think so.
Maybe
But
not.
that brings to mind the new Super Mario games,
Mm.
which are co-op, and those can be not. Those aren't even like the fun hate your friends frustrating. Those are just like throw your controller at the wall frustrating because of the way you. I prefer like Rayman Legends did a version of that. It's a co-op platforming,
Mhm.
but just such a simple thing where you phase like characters don't bump off each other in Rayman. In New Super Mario, characters bounce off each other, like they're physically there hitting each
Oh
other.
yeah.
So like, it's cool. You could jump off each other and like solve puzzles together, but also you're just ramming and bouncing off everything. So it's just chaos if you have four players. But
But there's also something cool about, because I remember we've played a good amount of the new Super Mario Brothers games. There's something cool about that where you can kind of like have one of my favorite things about like particularly platforming co-op games is like the amount of like fun you can have playing around with the other person, like fucking with the person, like
yeah,
there is a lot of fun to be had. I know particularly not that one, yes, but also 3D World. Like a lot of times, like we
yeah,
would do that. We would mess around with each other, or I know I would, especially when I was first starting to play it. I would just go into the bubble and follow you guys around almost the entire thing,
yeah, yeah.
and just like piss you guys off. Like there
A
was,
lot of them are Nintendo. They really like the friend co-op, single player games with co-op. Um, but yeah, Portal 2 is not like that. You need a second player. But it is like that in the fact that, well, even more just like thinking wise, you have to like plan stuff out.
yes,
Like it's less the chaotic trying to like get through it like by your bootstraps kind of thing. It's
yes.
more like you got to figure stuff out and pull it off.
And there are moments like that in Triforce Heroes where like you do kind of have to coordinate and realize, okay, I need
Yeah.
this person to shoot this and this person to shoot this while I blow this up, or I need both you guys to grab me, and then at the exact moment I need to shoot this thing, or like something cool that Triforce Heroes does that probably Portal 2 doesn't. I don't think Portal 2 does, at least, is wait, no, well, no, in Portal 2 one of you is the blue, one of you is the orange, right? So you need to work together that way.
Yeah, I think they changed the colors,
I think they do.
but for co-op. But yeah, you
One of you shoots one portal, one of you shoots the other.
you only connect to your portals. Wait, now I forget how it works. You yeah, it's like you both have a portal gun.
Yeah.
You can't make one of your portals go into their portal, right? You have to configure it using like
Right.
You each have a separate portal gun.
You're right.
Only your portal goes to your other.
You're right. It's not like they work together like that.
Yeah.
Whereas in Triforce Heroes, like there's this kind of mechanic where everyone can pick up one item in Zelda fashion. So if you have a bomb, you can't shoot an arrow and complete that orb puzzle, right? So this was something that was happening a lot with us in that game. Dan was the one who would have the arrow, so we would have to remember we'd have to pick him up. He'd have to shoot at the exact time, and he was the only way that could complete that. And
we had to make sure, like, to pick him up first, so he'd be on top of the totem.
Yes, because you have to pick that. So you would have to pick him up first, and then I would have to pick you up, and then there would also be confusion because sometimes Dan would accidentally pick someone up, or we would pick.
Or like the boomerang. We had boomerangs at the time.
Yes.
And that picks someone up if you boomerang them into you.
Yes, that was happening too a lot. And you're right, that is a little bit more hectic. Whereas, like you said in Portal 2, it's way more about. And the portals are, like you said, specifically colored so you know where your streaks are and the other person's are. But you do have to use your streaks together to complete these crazy, super intense portals. And
I think Triforce is a really good middle ground of like the new Super Chaos and the Portal 2, like, more thought out.
Yes.
Triforce is in the middle, I think.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that even in Portal 2, I know that game is it's known as like a friendship killer or
Which
whatever.
One?
Portal 2, because like it's like very in depth how much you have to plan with the other person.
Yeah, well, I see that less as a friendship killer and more as just getting stuck. Like I feel like you'd hit a wall easier in that.
Yeah. Which is what happened to a lot of people when they were playing through that campaign.
I think I got to the end of it, but I had like 3 different partners throughout my campaign. Like I got 3 different of my friends to help me through as the other person.
Who was the most helpful of the friends?
I don't remember, honestly. But I was the best.
I would love to do a playthrough of you with that because I've never played through it, and then we're both big Portal fans. I feel like we could have some fun with that, but it would be frustrating. But I'm sure it'd be great content for the viewers at least.
It's cool how it does kind of tie into the whole Portal story.
It does. Well, it takes place post Portal 2, right? Like because at the very end of the game you see the 2 robots.
I'm not sure if it's post. It may be like a during kind of like focused somewhere else plot. You know, like it tells the story of these 2 robots and how. I think it may be prequelish. It like explains other things that happened beforehand.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Very.
But it's very brief. It's like during the credits, it just shows you a cool like piece of the Portal universe.
That's pretty cool. That's still pretty cool.
Can you think of any other co-op games, puzzle or not?
Less so puzzle and more so like other genres. It's interesting now to think about this because like I've been playing a lot of co-op puzzle games with you and Dan recently, and more in my young life, a lot of my experiences was more with like shooting games and stuff like that. Like because those are obviously a big, totally different type of.
Those are easier to make, I think, as a co-op experience.
They're easier because they are on that base level a lot more. Just like visceral and immediate, but there's some great examples like the Left 4 Dead games, which I brought up earlier. I think are a pretty fantastic example of how to do a co-op shooting game where there's still a lot of intelligence to them, because there's a lot of like you have to do certain things with certain enemies. You can only attack certain enemies. If you attack certain types of enemies, they attract more of like the regular zombies to you, so on and so forth. And don't get me wrong, like the whole zombie thing's very played out, but those games did that idea of planning out very well. The Payday games, which I know we were talking about Payday 2 as a game we're both excited to play. Those games do a very similar thing where you have to plan out.
That's a really good one, yeah.
And act accordingly, like, because then, like, one of the cool things that the Payday games do is that, like, once one of you fires your weapons, it shits off. Like the cops know, like, will come in guns blazing. So you have to literally determine when you even break your weapons out.
It's another one where one person can ruin it for your team.
Exactly, one person can ruin it, and it does require a lot of coordination and cooperation. Some of my favorites, though, I'm a big fan of the Borderlands games and of Diablo type games.
I just thought of another one. Dead Island was a good one. I
Oh,
played that with my brother and his friends
you
for a
know,
while.
I actually really want to get into Dead Island. I know for a while back they were selling the definitive edition, which I've heard is
Uh-huh.
actually a very good remaster, PlayStation 3.
And I know that that one takes a bit of cooperation, and I remember some funny moments just driving one of the cars in the game
Yeah,
where it would be like no one wanted me to drive because I would just have fun and like crash into stuff. They're like, yo, zombies, we gotta kill zombies.
and that's always fun too. It's that's the thing. It is fun sometimes, like when the other two people or three people are like very intense and super, to be the one who's like, I'm gonna crash this car, or I'm gonna jump off this ledge on purpose, or
Yeah,
it's silly and dumb, and like, you don't want to do it too much, but like
that's
that
why it's
is
fun to troll. But when they put in those little mechanics to like almost shame the troll, a bit with some penalty.
that's that is fun too. Can you think of any specific examples of that?
Well, Triforce, if you kill everyone.
Oh, that's
I'm
true. That's
saying
true.
like
Yeah, no,
when there's ultimate consequence, and not just like Dead Island. I could fuck around in the van, and
that's
not
true.
much would really happen besides annoying them.
That's true. I mean, there on the flip side, I do think there's something fun of just that kind of breezy funness of just like you're just with your friends, you're having fun. It doesn't really matter. But I agree, like especially for a Zelda game, it makes so much sense to have that like very particular, or with a Portal game, it makes so much sense to have these very precise levels that you will fail if you don't do everything correct,
Yeah,
because that's how single player functions. Like
I guess Portal. You don't really need that in there because if the other person stops playing, you just can't do anything. If you
it
lose the other portals, you're just stuck.
it is, but at the same time, I mean, if the other person leaves, I mean, there's a whole single player campaign, and it's a fully featured campaign. I like what Valve did with that, where it's like, this is very much so you're working with a person, you have to work together with them. And don't get me wrong, I know there was some reactions were hit or miss on that. It's a mode that I enjoyed for the bit I played. I know it was described to me as a mode that you had to be very much so in sync with the person with. I remember very humorously, Dan Roach and a former friend of ours who was not the most patient and intelligent person,
Hmm.
were playing the game together, and I was watching him and Dan play it. I wasn't playing along, and you could not have paid me enough money in the world to switch shoes with Dan in that moment. So yeah, definitely in that case. Do you like Portal 2's campaign? Looking back on it, the co-op campaign.
Oh yeah,
Hmm. We need to touch on that. We need to play that again soon.
we'll try it.
Hey, moving away from playing a game physically together to sitting in different spaces, but playing a game
Playing
at
a
the
game
same
together,
together,
but not together.
but not together at the same playing a game at the same pace.
This is the first update of our Keep Pluggin Game Club.
Woo! Keep plugging game plug week numero uno inside week numero 17. I forget what 17 is in Spanish. Anyway, um,
So we've been playing Psychonauts.
we've been playing Psychonauts like we said we would last week. We have a brief update for you guys. We're going to talk for 5 to 10 minutes about it. We are going to go point to point though. If you guys didn't catch last week's episode, very quickly, Game Club is a book club style exploration of a bunch of games that me and Ben haven't played yet. We go from point A to Z. So we play through the entire game week to week. We play through a very small controlled amount, and then we talk about that amount. So our first game is Psychonauts, the 2004 puzzle platforming masterpiece by Tim Schafer, and co-written by Eric Wolpaw, who actually co-wrote Portal and Portal 2.
There you go.
Connections, there we go. And is actually now writing Psychonauts 2. He left Valve to do it. But
So yeah, we played through the intro and the first two levels.
yes, basic braining and Sasha shooting gallery. So we're going to talk about all of it in chronological order, and we're going to go pretty in depth. So if for some reason you guys haven't played the original Psychonauts, maybe you're holding out for the sequel, you don't want to know stuff, spoiler warnings, but we're only talking about the beginning of the game. That note, Ben,
Also, get the game and play along with us.
get the game and play it. Yes, that's before we start. That's the other thing too. This is not just us sitting and talking about this. We want you guys, our listeners, to play along with us. Today, Tuesday, I actually tweeted out a reminder. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff like that going forward. We want to engage you guys and make sure you guys are playing along with us. buy the game if you don't have it. If you have a copy on Steam, like me and Ben have, that you just haven't been playing for years, pick it up and start doing it. I've wanted you to play this game for a very long time, so I'm very interested to hear what you think of the opening parts, the opening cinematic, and the early parts pre basic braining specifically.
Yeah, well, the opening cinematic and all the cutscenes are pretty awesome. I'd say most games I'm not really a fan of cutscenes. You know, I like to get to the gameplay. I'm that kind of guy.
Mhm.
But these were really entertaining, and you just mentioned the writer, and the writing is really it's hilarious. I was laughing out loud, and I mean, not a lot of games make me laugh,
Yeah.
and this is it's great. Like there was one in the opening cutscene. The whole game is based around like going into people's minds and reading their minds and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
It takes place at a psychic summer camp, if you guys don't know.
the main character is like floating down and making his entrance, and the psychic people are like, "Yo, we can read his mind. We can get it," but they're failing. And just one of my favorite little jokes was the general character.
Yeah.
The main character was
When he's
about
like-
to say his name, and he was like, "It starts with a D." Like he was just like he had to get in his little like prediction.
My
but he was wrong.
favorite is when right before that when he's like trying and he's like can't get in and he's like making those like really like
Yeah.
horrible like over dramatic like I love that character so much.
And then he's like, "My name is," and he's like, "Starts with a D, right?" Just desperate to make the connection.
I love.
Yeah, the writing is really great. I just also there was one where when I was exploring the campgrounds, this little kid was like talking to squirrels, right?
Oh,
He was like, and I just love the entrance of the main character, Raz, right? Yeah, Raz.
Yeah, Raz.
And he's like, "What's up? Got squirrel trouble?" I just love bad puns like that.
I just love the delivery too, where he's like, "I'm not gonna do it. No, I don't care what you say. I'm not going to kill everyone."
Yeah, and the
A joke.
the kids in the camp are all like they look demented, like some crazy Tim Burton characters, and the art style reminds me of like the James and the Giant Peach movie. And
it is like that. We were discussing that it's a lot like Nightmare Before Christmas, but it is that like very like stop motion animation-y classic like kind of contorted weird characters, but also kind of whimsical and cutesy.
yeah. But like the main character has like a really cute boy face, like it's appealing. So it's like it's not like they couldn't make good looking characters. It's like they wanted to make messed up looking characters.
Yeah, because it's funny too, because like it is almost like a style they would choose in a more like a more low res, like low polygon, like PlayStation 1 game. They might have had to make that choice because they couldn't.
Yeah.
It was funny because this was PS2, Xbox era. Like they could have done more realistic looking characters. They were like, nah, let's just make them look like freaks.
Yeah. So
they even reference that in the opening line, right? They're like, freaks of the world, and like they pan to the boy with like
and the camera focuses on like the most freakish one. So the character design, the art style, all on point for me. I actually, I can't remember the music that much. Some of it was like classical. I noticed like they took some classical music, like Mozart or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the music didn't stand out to me. Not that it was bad. But in general, the whole art direction, so good. And the what did you think of the controls platforming?
It was interesting because the first time through that I played that bit that I played, it was on PC, and I was playing on an older PC, so the game chugged a little bit, and I was playing keyboard and mouse, so I had some responsiveness issues. The game, I think, the platforming is actually very solid. We were talking about this. The one issue I have is that the camera is a little wonky. It doesn't quite focus. It tries to follow you, but it doesn't do quite a perfect job of following you, and it kind of could make it hard to see. Sometimes you have to really finagle it to see what the next platform is that you're going on, but it's not terrible. Like I've played platforming games with much worse. I would argue even like Ukulele. Like I don't know if you ever played any of that, but like
Not yet.
based off what I've seen, Ukulele's like camera, for instance, seems like it's fucking horrendous comparatively to this. I don't think it's so bad, but there's just some moments that you have to stop and realign, I think, before you jump. You know?
Yeah, definitely. And when you get the lock on ability, it's a little better, like in Zelda, where you can just do the quick center.
I would always do that too. Yeah, like same thing as Zelda. You can just focus it behind you real fast.
The platforming itself, I thought was really smooth, but yeah, the camera is all that gave me trouble as well. But
I know something you were mentioning. not getting too wrapped up in the mechanics. Again, we do kind of want to go point to point on the story, but you like how much midair control you have.
Yeah, like just in any jump, you can turn like it's more like a swivel. Like you're not moving where you're gonna land. It's more moving where you're facing, and I just like that that much control in the air.
Yeah,
Like it was like it's as much control as a Mario game, like but it was different, you know.
it
It
is,
gives
and
you a lot to work with.
it is, and something I was alluding to, I think a little bit last time, and even in the or earlier in this episode, but also on the last podcast, is that it is very Mario 64 inspired in a lot of ways. Like it does have like a hub world kind of in the camp.
Yeah.
Um, I know that was kind of the next point we're going to talk about. We were already kind of discussing it. The writing and characters are fantastic. One of the cool things about the summer camp scenario is that it makes for a very naturalistic kind of hub world, and it gives you a lot of opportunity to kind of like walk up on this character when he's having this demented conversation with these squirrels who want him to kill everyone, maybe, and or like you get to like interact with like the grotesque looking bully or like your love interest. Like there's a
Hmm.
lot of opportunity for character development in that, but then there's also a lot of secrets in that, like in a classic Mario sense. Like
It feels more than a hub world. If you're gonna compare it, I'd say it's like a Mario Sunshine,
it
where it feels
is,
like a big area to explore.
it is like, and more like what it seems like, at least like the levels in Odyssey are going to be like when it is into it of itself a platforming level while also being like a hub area. Like there's
Yeah.
so many secrets, there's so many little things, like especially once you get to the minecart and all that too, and you can go to the different areas. Did you encounter any of the animals in the area or anything like that?
I found the crazy bear behind the lab.
Oh, the psychic bear. Oh,
That killed me,
oh yeah, that got me too.
but
A
I
couple
killed him
times.
back. Um,
Psychic bear is fantastic.
so yeah, the first main level was the general guy. Do you remember his name?
Oh God, I just played through the game last night, so I should remember this.
I just wrote him down as general. I missed his name.
Forgot what his name is
Um,
too.
but yeah, his kind of works as a tutorial level. Not like you go into like a basic tutorial before that, where they're just like tell you to look with the joystick.
Yep.
But this is more like it teaches the mechanics, and it's a simple level. Like it teaches you tight ropes and like swinging on pegs, and it teaches you about what you can collect.
In general, every part that we played is kind of teaching you a new mechanic. Even the shooting
True.
gallery is kind of teaching
Yeah,
you
that
the
is
side blast.
yeah. I think we went up to a good point because it's like just when the game is truly starting. I think.
Yeah, yeah. But
And
but at the same time, like one of the things that I love about the game then and now is, even though you're playing through it, it's pretty much like, if not a lengthy tutorial section, the game is like kind of holding your hand, and not holding your, quote unquote, holding your hand at least, and showing you things for a bit. It doesn't feel like it, because again, something about that world and that character, it makes sense that you're this young boy at this summer camp, and it's your counselors who are teaching you these psychic abilities. There's something about that that makes sense in the narrative, but also the whimsical world, the characters, and just like the design of the levels and the platforming mass it enough that like you don't really care that you're learning stuff.
yeah, I totally forgot that I was in a tutorial. It was done pretty well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's cool how like the first level is like a chaotic war zone, and the game does really well with the theming. I think at least based on the first two levels, the this and I think maybe it's on purpose, like to show you because the first two contrast heavily,
Yes.
especially the characters and the levels. And it's cool how like each level you're going into a character's mind and exploring their subconscious and conscious, and so it's like the concept goes all the way with making it like what you'd expect. Like the chaotic war general is chaotic, and there's explosions, and you're
Yes.
guiding character through a minefield and
There's
climbing
also,
under missiles.
yes, climbing under the missiles. There's also a lot of great work setting up what one of the cool themes of the game, which is the inner psyche of the characters. Something cool. You know how there's like the figments you collect, like
Yeah,
the way that they change from level to level is actually really interesting and telling of the character psyche. Definitely pay attention to that.
to what the actual figures are.
Yes, because even just going off of like the first two levels, you can already tell that. Like like in the generals, like there are all these people. They're either, there's one that looks like it's almost him, and like as like the form of the monster, the first one that you find, which is almost very telling of his potential characterization of himself. And then
And the figments are kind of like this game's version of coins.
yes,
They're
yeah,
these like silhouettes of anything really, but it's like they call them
yes,
figments.
yes.
And yeah,
Hopefully, if you're listening to this and you're playing along, though, you guys know that. But
true that.
one thing cool I noticed is that like there's one is like a bomb, one is like a soldier like who was like climbing up and looks like he's screaming. Like there's something interesting with like hinting at potential backstory for the characters in even those little elements like the figments, and I love that attention to detail because it is almost like Nintendo like there's even if there's more of a narrative bend and focus and like it's very weird and off kilter, I just love that stuff about it. And that opening level basic braining like is so interesting in that like even if it's not the hardest level, like it's so funny how like it's this very dark and grim, but also like kind of comically so because like it
Yeah,
has this warped art style, and he keeps blowing up all the other students, even though you know they're not actually dead, and like you see little pieces of them, even though it's like very cartoonish and not at all bloody. And they keep playing around with the idea that like he's supposed to be teaching you how to do this boot camp, but like it's also like a terrible boot camp. Like you don't learn anything really. It's just like very chaotic.
yeah. One part I actually had trouble with was swinging on the pegs, and I
Yeah,
didn't realize you could switch directions.
that
So
one
it was tough. Before I figured that out, I was getting pretty frustrated.
it's so funny. I think both times I played the game, that has messed me up at first. I think the game just doesn't explain it that great at first, but
It explains it like two like platforms later in the same level. It's like
yeah,
you could switch with this button, switch directions.
it's
It's
like
like
yeah,
you should have told me when this came up.
it is weird that after all the times they've released this game too, they never went back and fixed that. But
Maybe it's on purpose for some reason.
maybe it could fit into the level thematically. Getting into, do you want to get into the Sasha 9 section a little bit?
Yeah, so at the end, you get it right at the end of the first level. They give you the button. How do you find that? I forget.
I'm trying to.
It was the reward. You get the patch,
That's right. Yes,
and
the
then
patch.
yeah, I forget the exact moment, but you end up with the button, which he's like actually you get it like you're in his classroom afterwards,
That's right. Yeah.
and you have it, and then you talk to him, or I talked to the general, and he was like, "Why do you have that? That's what's his name's," and he's like, he unknowingly gives you a hint like any good NPC, and
That's something really clever they do too. They play around with like the exposition or like NPCs reminding you thing in funny ways by turning them into like very hilarious lines.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I went straight there, and because I learned the map feature through that, and
Mhm.
there was an X on where you had to go. So I went to the lab, and at first there was a few moments like this where there's like a disconnect with the buttons, and like I think it's also because I'm playing on Steam with an Xbox controller, and I had to map every button manually. So I'm like, as I'm playing, I'm mapping them as like the powers come in. I was like, oh, I couldn't even use the powers because I hadn't mapped them to a button.
Mhm.
So yeah, actually getting to my inventory and using the button on the lab door was something I missed. So I had to like figure out that I needed to map the inventory button.
Oh wow,
But yeah, once I got in there, you meet Sasha 9 for the second time.
you do great character, like European, like suave spy guy.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool. He's like I thought he was a professor when I in like the opening cutscene, but you learn that he's more of a scientist.
Yes,
And
he's kind of both. He's kind of everything.
he's kind of both. He's got that style.
Yeah,
Um,
because the whole idea is like it's a spy organization, and this is their summer camp for future recruits.
mhm.
So they're like scientist spy, like science professors.
And it's always cool. Like he was like, I could do these dangerous tests on you, but I can't actually ask you. But if you show up, that could be cool. So that's another one of those like clever ways to give you the hint.
It's funny too because in the game's lore, like Raz idolizes Sasha 9. He's like this like cult figure kind of, and there's like this element of like he's getting to like do stuff with this guy that like he idolizes, and something cool too that I'm sure comes up in this section, but also earlier in that quick tutorial section before basic braining, where what'd you call him? Ford the carrot nose.
Yeah, I call
Teach,
him Carrot Face because his mustache combined with his nose look exactly like a carrot.
they do. It's really funny. But something really funny, hint that Raz has his own kind of backstory that comes into the later game very interesting. Or seems like it's being set up to come back into the game
And yeah,
in some interesting
when you
ways.
start that level, you
Yes.
go into your own mind
Yes.
and you see like touchings of your past, and
Yes.
you go into what was it, like a wagon?
Yes. It looks like a circus
It
wagon
looks like
almost.
a yeah, like some kind of carriage, and you go in there and then you get trapped in this, like, it looks like TV static is all around you, and then you realize you got to punch out of it, and it turns out you're in an egg, which also has the connection to, like, when you first see the carriage, you're like, oh, this is connected to my birth, and then I noticed, like, you go in there and then you hatch out of an egg. It's
Yes.
kind of like a rebirth moment.
Yes. There's like this rebirth element. Then also it's kind of reflecting the idea of your birth in both senses of you being born as a psychonaut, reborn as a psychonaut, and where you came from, Raz's heritage, which
We don't fully know yet.
it seems like he's some kind of runaway or something like that.
Mm.
There seems to be some element like that at play. We don't want to get into too much, but I'm just looking at the clock right now. But just that level is so cool too. One of the things I love about it is how it is like this training level, but they do this really funny thing where like you have this like little meter and you can punch it to make it go higher, and your character keeps going like, oh, this isn't enough, this isn't
Well,
fast
that's
enough.
different actually. First, find the demon.
That's right.
You're still in your mind,
That's
and
right.
then you run into this demon monster, and then you get taken out by the
Oh,
by Sasha,
yes, you're right.
and
Yes.
he's like, okay, you need more training. Come into my mind, and then everything's sterile, and like he's like even seems pretty empty in here. He's like, no, I just have control, and it's cool actually. Every little thing about like psychology is worked into a gameplay concept. So like you find these vaults, which is like the secret like subconscious memories you keep locked away, and what were some other emotional baggage?
The emotional
That's like
baggage.
some of them are more punny than others.
Oh, the emotional. Oh man, it's literally a
It's
crying piece of baggage.
it's luggage.
But then you find did you find any of the tags for them?
Yeah, yeah,
That scene of like baggage and tag finding each other is like the most heartwarming
yeah.
thing on earth.
It's cool. And then
I wish real emotional baggage could just go away that quickly, right?
yeah, I wish. So then it gets to the point you were saying where it's basically teaches you the mechanic of your shooting ability, and you start murdering these little
Yes.
what are they? They're like little magnifying glass men.
They're like weird little creatures.
Just little monsters.
I think they're kind of more representations of like Sasha's ordered existence. And then there's this thing where
Yeah.
you can kind of up the threat level, and your character keeps being like, "Oh, it's not high enough. It's not fast enough," because he's very impatient. He wants to be a psychonaut. So like, even though it's a training session, like they're bringing the narrative back in, and they're kind of playing with like the dichotomy of like a normal training session.
Well, it is cool though. As a player, you can make that choice to
Yes.
hit it just all the way up at once, or like see how far you can go in each difficulty.
It does, yes. But then also, eventually, from a narrative standpoint, it does want you to get there because when you do that, that's when things get out of control, and then you have to reorder his mind,
Yeah,
which then leads into the boss fight too.
yeah. And then it turns into this bigger level where you're shooting down the what did they call them? It was another link to like a psychology thing.
Uh,
You
it's
know,
not. It's not the mental cobwebs.
the
That's
targets.
I know
It,
what you're talking about. Not the figments. It's the.
well, the concept was that he told you like you have to get control over my mind again. So you're shooting these targets that
Yes.
take control, and then you shoot every target. And he's like, "Oh wait, you weren't supposed to shoot every target because that's like taking all your emotions and thoughts and pushing
Was
them
it
down."
it? Was it it or whatever? Or ego?
Not, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
But the concept was just that if you suppress
Oh,
everything,
was it like suppressive emotions or something?
yeah, yeah. If you suppress everything, you'll explode, and that was the idea behind the boss.
Yes, that's right.
'Cause that was you hid everything away, and then it came out as a giant monster.
Yes, it turns into one big giant. Same thing that like when you get rid of everything and you just repress everything, it can kind of come back and be really ugly.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how far they go with all these like psychology ideas. It's pretty cool.
I'm willing to bet that it goes a lot deeper. But that was a great boss fight. It was, I mean, in some ways, yes, kind of like a standard boss fight, but I enjoyed it. I thought there were some clever aspects to it.
Yeah, And
It's
I had some difficulty actually just learning the mechanics. Like it's one of those things where once I realized that I just had to dodge, I just learned the dodging mechanic basically, and it is part of like the tutorial boss.
yeah.
So it was interesting. Like I usually am against all tutorials, but this time it seemed to teach me when I didn't know.
No, the tutorials are good, and like I said, they do a good job of making them make sense. Even that boss, even that boss itself has like has a tutorial aspect to it, and it's
Yeah.
just it's a great game. I'm enjoying it. I'm happy to play it again, and
And
yeah,
to tie it to the beginning of our episode, the actual level, you're on a giant cube,
yes,
but you can run all the way around it just like Mario Galaxy.
yes, and that's a cool thing too about that level aesthetically is that it does kind of show that ordered existence of this very in control person. His mind is literally just one cube floating in
Yeah.
space.
And you can even play with the gravity just like in Galaxy. Like if you do a double jump off the corner, you
Yes.
float way up.
Oh yes.
It's cool to play with those physics a bit.
There's a couple other sections in the game, like when you go into the classroom and stuff, right? You can like there's some other areas in the game. I don't maybe you haven't found them yet. You can do that kind of thing, and you can kind of like gravity changes from room to room in certain
Interesting.
areas in the camp. Um, on that note, though, I think we've touched on pretty much everything. Good first episode of the Game Club. Another great episode in the bag. Ben,
Well, wait. I just want to see. So for next week, if you're following along, we're gonna do the next two levels. So we're gonna play up to and finish the underwater level.
yes. So after the underwater level, once again, just stop, come back, and we'll have a nice conversation about what we played. But hey, great first episode of the Game Club, guys. Thank you for playing along with us. We love having you. And in general, as always, thank you for listening, guys. Ben, listeners, as always, I'm shaking Ben's hand. Metaphysically, I'm reaching out, shaking everyone's hand, saying thank you for playing with us. Thank you for listening. Ben, where can we find you online?
Find me at Keep Pluggin Li on Twitter and Keep Pluggin everywhere else. Check us out on YouTube.
Check out our YouTube. We're going to be doing video segments of the Game Club, as well as our normal Let's Plays, shorts, all that fun stuff, guys. You can find me on Twitter at Hi There Big Fella, one word, no caps. You can find me on Instagram as the Sans Man. That's the underscore Sans, underscore man. And you can find me on Snapchat as just Sans underscore man. Guys, thank you so much. Keep psychonauting and keep plugging.
Keep plugging. There's a bee.
That bee didn't die. Unlike all the